Good morning, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to this Sunday's episode of Riff Damps. Okay, all back together. So I made an executive decision just to quickly try the next cathode resistor value up, which is 220. It actually measures 215. It's brought everything well down to within specs, so it's quite cool. But I've noticed something really interesting with this. It genuinely sounds much better with the cooler bias compared to the 180 ohm cathode resistor in there. So with a slightly higher plate voltage or anode to cathode voltage, a slightly cooler amount of current in both the anode and the screens, the amps just come alive. It seems to be the sweet spot. Now, whether that's for that particular set of valves that are in there or just whether this actual circuit seems to want to be, it just sounds much better. So I thought I'd do some sound samples. So I've got the loop going and I'll show you both channels and explain what's going on where and why. What I'll do is I'll put captions on the screen so you'll know what channel is being played and when and where and why and all that kind of stuff. So hello everybody. So we're currently in so we're going to channel 1, which is the EF86 channel. And yeah, I'll just show you what's going on. So I've currently got the brilliance control off on this channel, and I'll just advance the volume control, and then I'll go through each setting and each channel so you'll get an idea of what this sounds like. It's a Vox Celestion Blue in the back. Here we go. And now we'll just go into channel 2 and we'll do the same. I've set the treble and bass both at noon. The cut control is also at noon. We'll just advance the volume control and you can hear how this thing starts to break up and goes into overdrive. So there you go. The amp is super quiet, sounds great, plays great, lots of sparkly chime if you want it there, and it's definitely not going to cook any valves anymore because it's running everything, seems to be at both the tonal and the operating sweet point. So yeah, good news on this. I'm sure the customer will be pleased, and yeah, long may he enjoy it. Okay, Louis Electric Columbia Reverb. Remember we had one of these in, was it last year? I think it was. But this one's come in. It has become quite noisy, according to the customer. And he wants me to go through it, do my thing, fix the issues. I'll demonstrate the noise and I'll show you what I found. But yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, this is a Princeton Reverb style amplifier. That's always fair to say. It does have a middle control, so it's got a 3-band EQ, reverb speed and intensity. It is in a larger cab, so a standard Princeton Reverb style cabinet, usually 16.5 inches tall. This one is 19, so it is a much taller cabinet. And generally I find these things to be pretty well made, especially for the price point. That's That's absolutely no issue there. Very nicely built, nicely finished, and I always think these do sound good. Now, you'll have to forgive me because I haven't looked it up and I can't quite remember, but the Columbia can run either 6V6s or 6L6s. And it's, rather than having a standard speaker socket and an extension socket, it's just got a separate 4K or 8K socket for whichever valves you're using. So if you're running 6V6s, you run in this socket here, which is an 8K impedance for as in the load on the output valves. And if you're running 6L6s, you run in this socket here. So this customer is running 6V6s, so we're in that socket there. It's got an external bias adjustment on the back. This particular one is running a 5U4 rectifier valve. So I will demonstrate to you the kind of noises that we're getting, but the first thing I immediately notice is that the reverb tank is in backwards. So as a rough rule of thumb, the connector should always be pointing forward, so we are going to have to reverse the tank around. That's probably not helping with the noise that this amplifier is producing, but we'll get this thing plugged in. I will put a microphone up against the speaker so you too can hear any sort of noises that this thing makes. We'll turn it on and we'll have a good old listen to what's going on and see if we can spot anything that is obvious. Now, when the customer dropped the amp off, we did have a quick demonstration, and the tremolo does affect the noise, as in it's a bias tremolo on these amps, so it's switching the output valve on and off. And when we did that, the noise was switching on and off with the valve. So I'll be able to demonstrate that to you. Very nice purple dual light as well. So the amp's turning on now, and we'll have a listen. Quite a bit of hum there. So on the F&T plot, we've got a hum at 94 Hertz, so that's rectified hum. So mains frequency is 50 Hertz, so double that being 100 Hertz, so that's about where we are. We've also got a peak at the harmonic there as well. Now the level of that, with it up to the speaker, is around negative 60, or negative 58. Hello. Let me just close this blind. I'll just turn the volume control up. Treble. Well, that's interesting. If I turn the mid control all the way up, the hum disappears. Watch. So the mid control on the tone stack is working like a reverse volume for the hum. Reverb control. Well, that increases our hum, and obviously speed and intensity. Okay, so we've definitely got an issue there. This is not normal operational noise for an amplifier of this type. Let's go this way. Red plating. You ever see that before? I'll zoom you in. We're looking at the 6v6 on the left here. There you go. And it red plates. So we've got something strange going on with either this valve or this socket. Not good, not good. Okay, so that's the Columbia Reverb. So I think the best thing to do now is to pull the chassis, have a look inside, do our visual inspection. You all know the routine by now. We're looking for anything that's immediately out of place. So burnt, damaged, previous repairs, that sort of thing. And we'll take it from there. Something I've just spotted, the mounting screw for the strain relief doesn't go in all the way, but it looks massively oversized, and it's wasn't even in properly. Look, signs that somebody else has been in this amplifier before. I don't like it. Right, pretty standard affair. You know, we have seen one of these before, so it's nothing too surprising. Absolutely massive output transformer, much larger than the mains transformer, which is surprising because if you're going to run 6L6s in these, I would have thought this would be larger. But there you go. Standard lineup, really. There's nothing much to report on the top side. There is a dent or damage to the can cap just here, but I don't know if that's just where someone's installed it poorly or if it's a replacement. I don't know. Anyway, we'll flip this thing over and we'll have a look inside. Can you see? You can. Okay, so standard Louis Electric style build construction. A combination of some very nice components and some very nice components. Kind of a standard hand-wired Princeton Reverb amplifier, really. As always, you could spend, you know, all day long nitpicking stuff if you really wanted to, but we're not here to do that. We're simply here to find out what's wrong with this amplifier, where the noise is coming from, what's going on, etc, etc. So first thing I noticed is this bias cap up here. It's huge, much larger than is usually fitted in an amplifier like this. Right, I need to get my discharge cable because we've just had this amp on and I don't fancy getting zapped. That one. Okay, so anyway, this bias cap here, usual value is minimum 50 microfarad, sometimes 70, sometimes 80. Often you'll find 100 microfarad in there just to make sure that the bias supply itself is super clean and noise free. Well, this one is a 22 microfarad at 500 volts, and the bias supply is less than 100 volts. So, and it's a cheap IC cap. So I don't think that's factory, and if it is, it's not large enough, which could be, you know, which could explain a lot of the noise we're hearing. So we're definitely going to swap that out for a more appropriate value before we even go any further. Apart from that, the rest of the amp is pretty much as you would expect. So yeah, I'm not overly... It's got grid stoppers in all the right places. 510 ohm scream droppers rather than 470. That's what he wants to run, fine. I can't see the value of the grid stoppers for the output valves on pin 5 because he's sleeved them. So we'll have to go measuring. 5K6s. What about this side? 5K6. It's quite a much larger value than is standard for a Princeton Reverb style amp. I mean, that's this kind of value used on EL34s. Not 6L6s and 6V6s, but there you go. That's where we are. What else can we find? Not much, really. So I think we need to test the valves. We need to check all the pin connections on the sockets. We need to check all the solder joints around the bias supply. Fix this. Test the valves themselves. And then go from there. Because I'm pretty sure... I've just seen it. Okay. Oh, whoops. Centre pin of this 6V6 snapped off, which means at some point somebody's tried to insert it incorrectly, or did insert it incorrectly and ran the amp. So maybe it's not the socket, maybe it's the valve that's the problem. So we'll have to test that as well. I'm going to pop it back in though in the right orientation. See, without the centre pin, it's difficult to do. Maybe we'll just sub in a cheap pair. Anyway, right, so that's that. I'm going to get it set up on the test bench. We'll check its output, see if there's anything immediately obvious going on, check for parasitics and all those fun things. And then I can start fixing what I think are the obvious issues. I need to make sure all the grounds are tight, etc, etc. How does the can cap ground? What's he done for that? Is it just grounding through the casing? Not sure about that. Okay. Anyway, Louis Electric Columbia Reverb, one red plating 6V6, and other issues as well. Right, cracking on with the little 5F1 Champ build. I have made the board, so cut my FR4 to size. 5.3 inches, I think, was the length in the end. Drilled all my eyelets and I have swaged those in place. I've got a couple of holes for wire runs and I've got my 2 mounting holes here. So build tip for you. Most of you guys know this by now, but for those that don't, and I say this, and it doesn't matter what amp you're building, this I think is one of the most crucial things that you need to do before you do anything else. Before you populate your board, before you start adding any components to your chassis, do this job. And that is confirm that the mounting holes in the board line up with the ones in the chassis or vice versa. It's easiest to do this now than it is further down the line. So I'm using one of the steel, it's cold rolled steel, isn't it? Chassis, that's right. And it's got, they come, because you buy these off the shelf, it's got mounting holes already in, but with my own, because I've changed the board design, it's not guaranteed to line up with where the components are going to sit on my board, because you might have a component covering a hole. So I always mount my boards kind of with my holes diagonally with each other. So I have one on this side, usually at the bottom right hand corner, and then my other one up here, and depending on the length of the board I might have a third one. And that's generally all you need for FR4 because it's quite a sturdy material. But where this is going to sit in the chassis, should we zoom you in? That looks nicer, doesn't it? I kind of have to just work out exactly where I want this to sit, which will be probably somewhere like there. Maybe a smidge over. I'm going to keep working on this for a little bit. Then what I can do is I can use my board with, I've already put my own mounting hole locations in the board, transfer those holes to the chassis, then I can drill the chassis, and then I know that's going to line up exactly where I want it. But I'm just going to do a quick little bit of working out exactly where I want all of this to go. Here's your your two inputs are here. So normally I would try and line up these two eyelets, which is for your input stoppers, with those holes, but we can't do that because of the physical size of the chassis. This is one of the reasons why I don't recommend a champ build as your first build. Do a 5E3 or maybe an 18-watt light, just because you've got more room to work. I mean, it's very difficult to work inside these chassis because they're so small. It's like building a ship in a glass bottle, right? It's so fiddly. So even though the circuit is simple, I often recommend that people don't build a 5F1 as their very first, because it's just so fiddly, especially when you're trying to get in the corners with tools and things. So anyway, that was beside the point. I'm going to mark my holes where I think I want them to go. It's going to refer back to my drawings and things and work out the optimal location, because remember, I'm also not wanting to run wires too far or not have too... I don't want my wire runs to be too long. I ideally want to keep things as short as possible or as neatly as possible. So I just need to optimize things there. What I am thinking of doing is adding a... Sorry, bear with me. Adding a HT fuse as well. So I need to make sure there's clearance for that. But I'll work through it and work it all out. But yeah, so as I was saying, it's important that you do your board mounts and get those right first. Now, if you're buying a kit, sometimes, as I said, they're already pre-drilled in both the board and the chassis, but double check they line up, because sometimes they don't. And you need to discover that now rather than much further down the line. So anyway, top tip for you. Good news. Well, yeah, good news. Most of you will know I had a bit of a rant a couple of weeks back about tariffs and global trade wars and what it's going to do to the industry. And as you knew from certain suppliers, I'd kept receiving new price lists that felt like it was on a weekly basis, where the prices were just going up and up and up and up. But curiously, I hadn't received, or Celestion had not issued their latest price list. But it's just come through. Today's the 1st of May, and the new Celestion price list, dated the 1st of May, trade price list, has arrived with me. And either they've made a mistake or they're just the greatest company ever. I'm not sure which one it is. I'm hoping it's just that they're the greatest company, because I can't show you, because obviously I can't show you trade pricing, but I can give you an idea of what's gone on. So most prices since the last issued trade price list, which was September 2024, so 6, 7, 8 months ago, something like that. Most of them have either stayed the same or dropped. Okay, so Celestion Gold, classic Alnico speaker, has remained exactly the same price. Celestion Blue has remained exactly the same price. Celestion Ruby has remained exactly the same price. G1265, G1265, I was just looking at it a minute ago. Heritage G1265 has dropped by about 4%. What? Since when do prices ever go down? Okay. G12M greenback, again, 4% drop. Vintage 30 stays the same. In fact, that price, I've looked back, that price has been exactly the same trade price since the 1st of September 2021. So, yeah. And that's now UK made as well. Amazing. There is not one speaker. No, tell a lie. There is the. I marked it. Where is it? One of these speakers. Oh no, that's the other way round. The Neo Copperback is down 6%. What? Amazing. You know, do you remember I was telling you that some of the American brands have just gone through the roof? I'm glad I switched to Celestion. So, thank you, whoever you are. Amazing. So, yeah, it's not all doom and gloom anymore. We've actually got some good news in the guitar industry, at least for amp manufacturers anyway, in that not only have Celestion brought all of their stuff in-house in the UK, so nothing made abroad anymore. UK made proper speakers, as they should be, and the prices are either the same or cheaper. Well, I've got the Columbia on the test bench. It's running, and at the moment that valve is not red plating, but what I'm doing is I'm just scoping the, you can see there, I've got an oscilloscope probe on the bias supply itself, so we're looking at the how smooth the bias voltage is. Now, oh sorry, that's a bit skew-if, there you go. This bias voltage is rectified, well this is post-rectification, and then is being filtered by that 22 microfarad cap. And this voltage via the intensity pot goes straight to the input grid of the output valves. So it's always vitally important that this bias voltage is as clean as possible. And as you can see from the scope trace, it really isn't. We've got, it's quite sawtooth looking, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to parallel a 47 microfarad capacitor alongside the 22, which is going to give us, what's that, 69 microfarad, something like that. And you'll see what that extra filtering does to the, what am I saying? To the bias voltage. So this is just the 22, and then we're going to add a 47 in parallel. Here we go. That's come right down now. That's come right down. But we're red plating now, so just turn the amp off. So, but you could see how much smoother that bias voltage became when it had the correct level of filtering. So, but it's exactly why we do these visual inspections and we look for things that, you know, are out of place. Now, there's nothing burnt or damaged in here, but I know from experience that a 22 microfarad cap in the bias supply is just not enough. Definitely not enough. So I'm going to go, before I do anything else, I'm going to go swap in 100 microfarad, which is my preferred value. I like to keep the bias supply as clean as possible to eliminate any chance of any hum or any ripple being injected into the control grids of the output valves. Right, so I didn't actually have any 100 microfarad on the shelf at 100 volt, which I prefer to use. I've got 63 volts, but you know, the bias voltage on these can be around 55, 60 volts, and I always think 63 is just a bit borderline. So anyway, 80 microfarad at 100 volt, absolutely great. I'll pop this in now, and then we will redo the same test. So I'll show you the resulting ripple or lack of on the bias supply. So let's get this one in. Lovely. Okay, discharge cable off. Probe back on. Reference to ground. Start up in restriction mode. Tremolo defeated. Oh, come on, behave. Right, let's go. There you go, a much lower level of ripple. So before the, hold on, let's put it on full power mode. So before, the peak-to-peak voltage was around 130 millivolts of ripple, and now we're at 32 millivolts. So quite a large reduction there. The amp's still humming, but a lot less now than it was before. So vital, as demonstrated, that we use a nice clean bias supply. Right, I'm going to carry on working on the rest of this amplifier, working through issues, bits and pieces. But yeah, I wanted to show that to you. Hopefully you found it interesting and exciting. But why on earth? I mean, I don't know if Louis Electric did this or whether someone else has, but I mean, we know the voltage rating is, you know, by a factor of 5 too large to what it actually needs. It's an IC cap, which we don't like, and the value is far too small. So yeah, not good. Anyway, I'm going to crack on with this, see what I can find. Well, it didn't take long. One thing I always do when I've got a ground hum like this is I just connect a test lead to chassis and I just go along, I'll show you, and just check all of the grounding points in the amp. Careful you don't touch anything that's high voltage, to see if there's a change. Now, do you remember we said, or we noticed, that there didn't appear to be a strong ground connection for the CAN capacitor? It's just done through metal to metal contact to the chassis. There's no wires connecting it or anything like that. Well, I'm going to boost the audio now so you can hear the hum level. I'm not going to talk, and then I'm going to touch my test lead to the body of the CAN capacitor, and you tell me what you think. Right, well, I think that answers it then. So we just need to add a proper ground for the filter can. You know, there's 4 capacitors inside that can and none of them have a good connection to ground. So no wonder this amp is noisy. I'm going to go ahead and do that. We've also got some wires that are grounded to transformer nuts, which you know I don't like. So I'm going to go ahead, tighten those up, put a bit of Loctite on as well to make sure they're not going to shift. I'm not going to spend too long messing around with this thing because it hasn't got my name on it. Because it's going to end up being quiet. I'm going to make it reliable, of course. But if the customer then decides he does want me to make grounding scheme improvements, more than that, and he's happy to pay for that, then great. But realistically, all we need to do is add a proper ground for the cap can. Now, the way I think I'm going to do that is replace this machine screw here. I'll zoom you in. Right, it's high voltage there, so I'm going to need a pointer. I'm going to replace this one here with a proper dedicated machine screw, nylock nut and grounding point, and then I can just make one directly to that terminal there, and that will be great. I'll probably just replace this machine screw at the same time with one as well, properly lock it down, and that should get this amp fixed at minimal cost to the customer. Right, grounding point done. And I know what you're thinking, what about the red plating? Well, I fired this thing up, I was measuring voltages on both sockets, and when it red plates, we are missing the bias voltage on the socket pin itself, but it was remaining up at the feed point here. So it indicates that somewhere on this line, something going wrong. So I removed the heat shrink from the resistor, which I can confirm is a 5K6. And you can see it's broken. It was just making intermittent contact there. Zoom you in even further. So that's our issue. So I'm going to put a new one in, fix all this up, make sure it's all good, and then retest it. But yeah, there we go. Next one in the queue is this Fender Blues Deluxe. It's tweed covered one. It's in pretty used condition, nice and road worn, definitely. It is a studio amp, so the customer or the owner who uses it in his studio says it's really only used for tracking now. It's not gigged, you know, so it might sit in the corner for months on end, and then, oh no, it's time to use that amp. So they dig it out, they plug it in, mic it up, play through it, and you know, then it gets shoved back in the corner again for, you know, an indeterminate amount of time before it's next called upon. But it has developed a couple of issues which he's decided to actually get done. It's one of Eli Abbott's old customers. Of course, Eli is now no longer working on amplifiers. He's now a postman, so it has been referred to me to get sorted. So I'll walk you through what it's come in for. I've already taken the back off because when he described the symptoms, I immediately knew, you know, what the possible cause was. So spin you around and I'll show you. So these amps can be a bit of a ticking time bomb. I'll just zoom in and show you. So these two resistors here, these two white resistors, similar on Hot Rod Deluxes and other amps of similar ilk, they're too close to the board and they run too hot. And hopefully you can see on camera, but we've actually got signs of scorching of the board behind, which is very common on these. Now, when these fail, you can get all sorts of issues, and the issue that the customer is complained about is channel switching issues, which is one of those main problems caused by what we've got going on here. So he's asked me to fix it, which unfortunately does mean I've got to pull the board down and out to check the traces on the back, repair any traces, replace these resistors and mount them off the board, check all of the other components around. We are going to be doing a cap job on it, so get rid of these ICs and put some F&Ts in or similar. Check if it needs rewiring for 240 volt, which always helps these things run much cooler. We've been through that before. The other issue is with the input jacks, which, come on, zoom you in that one. He said they always feel weird, and he's not happy with them. You can see this one is completely loose. That doesn't, yeah, look at that. So he wants me, while the board is down, to check these two out, replace as required. I need to check that you can still get these ones. I think you can. You can see somebody else has already done work on this amp in the past. So we've got two electrolytic caps in series here. Interesting. And yeah, just go through it, give it a service, replace any valves as required. He's requested that, but as valves are so expensive now, we tend to be a bit more conservative with our valve replacement. You know, we only replace them if it's absolutely necessary, rather than swapping these things out as though they cost pennies, which of course they don't. So yeah, so that's a job. You'll see that in a later video, what's going to go on with that. But I need to order some caps. I need to get this board down, which unfortunately does mean removing all of the knobs and all of the nuts stuff from the top panel. Disconnect all the wires so I can drop this board down and fold it forward so I can check the underside, because if there is major trace damage, that might just put us, it might stop us in our tracks and make us have to reconsider what we do with this amp. He has kind of given me a rough limit to how much he's prepared to spend on it, so we need to keep that in mind as well. He's not overly attached to the amp, but if we can get it sorted, then great. But you know, if it's looking like it's going to be a lot of labour time in it, we might have to reconsider what we're doing. But there we go, Blues Deluxe. Just finished drilling some Elysium enclosures. It's funny, you know, because I didn't sell any for quite a long time. You know, I had loads sat on the shelf, and the stock would slowly drop. But last couple of weeks, I've taken so many orders for Elysium. So clearly, there's something in the water, because I can't stop building them. So anyway, I've just drilled both of these enclosures. And as you know, when I drill my enclosures, I always put a tiny little chamfer. Can you see? Just to really clean up that hole on the outside. I do like doing that. Each enclosure is individually serialized. So number 171. So whoever gets that, congratulations. And that's 172. So yeah, they are getting built as we speak, but the Columbia is all done. New set of 6v6s, because the old ones were shot after all that red plating. Of course they were. New 5K6 in. I just need to heat shrink in the heat shrink just to cover all that up. Customer, I gave him the good news on the phone. Customer really happy. He also asked me to slow down the tremolo. The minimum speed of the tremolo on this was slightly too fast, so a couple of circuit mods to that, which I have now done. It's just finished its burn-in. It's now cooling down, discharging. Then I can get it back in the cabinet. I've set the bias on the old Compu. And yeah, it's all good and done. So yeah, really happy with this one. I think all of the issues we found are not Louis Electric's fault. I think the can cap was replaced in the past and not done very well, because I don't think that's the standard can cap for these amps. I'm convinced that these had the JJ caps in. So someone else has done that and not put a proper ground on. Wear and tear on that pin 5 on V6, so can't really do anything about that. And some other tech did put the wrong bias cap in, so yeah, you know, this is the type of stuff we come across. But anyway, customer is happy with all the work that's been done. Need to load it back in the cabinet, which is down there, and then yeah, he can come and get it. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. As always, please give this video a thumbs up, or your comments and questions down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. We are this close to 6,000 subscribers. Insane. Hit the notification bell if you haven't, so you know when new videos come out. If you are feeling super generous, why not join the channel like these guys have? And I will catch you all at the next one.